I noticed the correlation when companies succeed and they allocate their budget effectively and achieve better ROI is the moment when they start like, what part we don't understand? Let's figure this out. Let's actually be honest. Let's be transparent. Like, I don't get it. How this works? Show me, remove all the statistical jargon, like all this p-value and stuff. Like, can you explain to me? Because anything in business and any systems should be explainable in simple terms. And there will be logical reason. There will be some simple reasoning behind it, how it works and mechanics of it. Once you understand that, then everything will make sense.
Hello, everyone. Today we are talking about the misconception in MMM and incrementality measurements and how to attack it with different angle. I'm Gabriele Franco, CEO and co-founder of Cassandra, and with me there is Talgat.
Hi, everyone. I'm Talgat Musin, founder of Incrementality Insider. And very interesting conversation today with Gabriele regarding the misconception and the measurement. I want to highlight that we're going to talk about something really different today. Aside from practical and technical terms, it's about real deep meaning. What does it mean to understand the measurement and what's really going on? And I want to also highlight and share and have a natural conversation with Gabriele regarding the insight I was able to accumulate over the almost 9 years within this field. And I observed certain patterns and certain misconceptions and certain frameworks I was already developed and planning to share during the conversation regarding that. Aside from terminology and aside from conventional approach to this, there is a different angle, like a real talk, like how people understand this, how they perceive and how they internalize and how they act. So in that sense, we'll probably start with your journey. Can you share within like next few minutes your journey, how you arrived at this, and then specifically on the insights, how whole measurement is broken?
100%. So my take is mostly related to technology, right? So I was a marketer. I was in the agency. I built an agency. And at one point, I managed 12 million euros in advertising investments, which was cool, but also scary. Because if you make any mistake in the allocation of these 12 millions, it's millions in damage. And I couldn't live with it. And I started searching online for a solution because I knew that in 2021, when I faced this problem, there was the iOS 14 update that deprecated the ability of tools to track users online. So the attributions were not good. Google Analytics showed only last click. And my clients invested all over the places. So I said, right, let's search for a solution. There were traditional vendors like big consultancy agency that were charging hundreds of thousands of dollars for single measurements called MMMs. And I would tell them like the truth, like this is the presentation, this is the truth. And it would have been delivered in 6 months, which was unacceptable for me. So we decided to solve the problem for us. What we discovered is that we could actually shorten the cycle to few hours in training of the models and deliver the same results that these traditional vendors would sell and ship in 6 months in really, really fast turnaround. Now, the game is kind of nice because there is $1.15 trillion invested every year in advertising. But if you look at how it's allocated by random choices, politics, and deprecated measurements. Now, the first thing that you need to do, and I think the biggest opportunity in this field is helping companies invest scientifically. And before you actually help them to invest scientifically, you need to first measure. And it's my view right now, we are almost 20 people. We raised $2.7 million from capital. We're growing. But this is my view. This is a technology point of view on how to make it fast, cheap, and affordable for everybody to measure and optimize their investments. Your take and your story is kind of nice because you saw the other part. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. I think my evolution in this slightly unconventional that back in 2015, I started at Google as a contractor, GTM, but luckily I landed in the area of causal measurement. Incrementality is just the very beginning of
2015.
2015, yeah. It was very beginning, not 15. Actually, 15 I immigrated, it was 2017, sorry. Okay. 2017, but yeah, very beginning of the first paper of the geo-experimentation, geo-based regression Then the next one was time-based regression, very influential movement started measuring things holistically outside of deterministic attribution. So I was right in the heart of this revolution, sort of, and was able to measure and work for Google clients to measure their investment in the Google media effectively. And Google provided us additional services for the big clients, where we acted as an extended workforce for the big companies.
How big clients? So how much were they spending
I think, there's a division called LCS that changed, but at that time, I think the threshold was $10 million a year across all different products, Google products. And then you have special treatment like white glove services, special projects on the advanced measurement, support from advanced data science team, calculation of LTV. And one of the area was incrementality measurement. I want to try to compress all of this into shorter time frame. So the thing I saw and the thing I learned, and I think the advantage was that I didn't have a traditional background as a marketeer going through all the stages like agency. I came right in the heart of the platform itself. So from the inside and help client to measure when I develop the understanding of the causal measurement incrementality from that perspective. The numbers was really huge as well, because for me, it doesn't feel real. It was felt like a simulation game. Like there was a millions, like millions here, millions there, like a rounding errors of like hundreds of thousands and, like the scale Google operate. And over time, I start noticing that this topic is not properly covered, not properly like unpacked, because the whole industry still see the true deterministic attribution lenses. Like I think majority of the marketeers and businesses, they don't even aware that there's other way to measure. The only thing they think of measurement is like trying to track user across all internet and like cookies, devices and all of that. So that's why they don't even think that there is a alternative approach. And I think it's not being properly evangelized enough.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at the marketing industry in general, in the past 10 years, there has been a boom and an increase in advertising investments by everyone in retail and online media. And it's because they could do something that offline media couldn't do, which is attribute a number to a spend. Now, it doesn't matter anymore if the number is wrong or right. At least there is something.
Yeah.
And there has been an illusion of having this number right, because the illusion was I can track anything about my users online, which is, we know now that it's not possible anymore. Since 2018 with Cambridge Analytica and GDPR, we always move towards privacy. So the user needs to not be tracked in their navigation online. And this led to this mess in which we are in right now, in which everyone is moving from attribution and deterministic measurements to a statistical one.
Yeah. And I think it's a really interesting time that in many areas of marketing, there is so much innovation happening, but this specific measurement, it's like biggest pain point, biggest misconception. And I think regarding the attribution, just to to highlight benefits of it. Back in the days, I think I done the whole presentation, and I'll share probably later with the newsletter, that there was a certain stages of the measurement maturity. It came like from 60s, 70s.
Yes.
And first geo-experiments actually started by Procter & Gamble back in 50s. And they actually were pretty advanced statistically because they didn't have any technology to track. And that was the only way for them to do this studies across metro areas, launching across different cities, and then measuring holistically. That was like kind of obvious choice because there's no way to technologically track users. Then age of internet. And I think the big promise, which kind of pushed back all this more advanced measurement, is this promise of the one user, one device. It was actually reliable back at, like when it started, totally makes sense. Like you have only one computer and you buy something on the eBay and Amazon, you have one email, and it was very cheap to track. Cost of measurement dropped significantly. It was promised like, okay, you don't need to do any statistical analysis. You just deterministically track user because it's all kind of visible. But then things got getting complicated. But I think the biggest lack was understanding that all changed so much, but approach stayed the same, which is only accurate, applicable, and relevant to 90s or beginning of 2000. Because then what happened? working computer, home computer, personal cell phone, iPad, walled gardens, many systems. Now we have all those like huge overlapping systems where users come in and out. And then, but funny enough, the marketeers who hasn't changed their mindset, they think that you look for different dashboards, let's say like Google, Meta, TikTok, and they think it's all different users somehow.
Oh, yeah.
And they think the problem is not only user, they measure the objective deviated from the actual truth and the business objective, rational objective to some different objective of the maybe some platforms or who knows. That objective is impressions, clicks, CPC, all those bunch of abbreviations, which only I call them surface level metric. It's a proxies of the activities, but because I think we need to remind the industry, to everybody, that what is marketing? You're trying to change the behavior of users who will eventually sign up or buy your product and services. It's not about all this like a big mess in the middle. It's very simple, cause and effect. You spend money, you increase or decrease sales. That's only what's matters. So that was my insights regarding what's happening. And I think we see the positive trends, company like yours and many others being vocal about it, moving away from promise of the deterministic attribution accuracy to more holistic measurements.
100%. I realized that I could not rely on attributions, in-platform attribution, when I had a Shopify client that was spending $1 million a month. And I started adding the attribution from Meta, the attribution from Google, the attribution from TikTok. And they were like 40% more than the ones in Shopify. So what the hell? It's crazy because, yes, you're distributing a message that is going to influence the behavior of users. But there is a lot of overlap that cannot be measured because the other platforms do not share user level data they have internally. So unless we can actually match these users, and apparently legal wise, we're not going to that direction, we need external and other types of measurements, which is causal inference, by the way. I think it's the second most growing data science application after LLMs. Because understanding why a phenomenon happens is extremely valuable, both for business, medical, and a lot of other applications, in marketing specifically. I mean, it's not like the hedge fund industry or the finance industry, but 1.15 trillion, it's not nothing. Percent.
Yeah, and I think there are several topics can branch out of this. I think very important one that things get overcomplicated really fast and naturally observe when specifically high-stake decisions are made during the measurement conversation, test results, and memory results, and really like to read the room and scan the reaction. So what I noticed that a lot of times key decision makers, it's not their fault. Like it's not to blame anyone, because when you look deep down in the eyes, they don't fully understand how this mechanism works. That's why the people trying to hedge. That's why and also the problem that decision makers try to outsource the judgment. Like, let's call our data scientists, like, is it true or not? Because I don't understand all this, what they're saying. Can you tell me like a yes or no, good or bad? Because like they outsource and usually data scientists like very swamped with different projects. And this is one of them, which is second priority, not important. It's just like thrown at him and they're like, oh, like trying to make some statistical analysis, validation, confirmation. And like, I think the quality is not there. My key point is that I noticed the correlation when companies succeed and they allocate their budget effectively and achieve better ROI is the moment when they start like, what part we don't understand? Let's figure this out. Let's actually be honest. Let's be transparent. Like, I don't get it. How this works? Show me, remove all the statistical jargon, like all this p-value and stuff. Like, can you explain to me? Because anything in business and any systems should be explainable in simple terms. And there will be logical reason. There will be some simple reasoning behind it, how it works and mechanics of it. Once you understand that, then everything will make sense. And I think what's happening to you and to me, like over time, you develop certain critical mass of insight and understanding, and then you see the world differently. Make an analogy, like you don't understand why people not getting it. It's so specifically if you are really long and deep enough in this, like why are you not getting it? And then I start digging deeper because That's actually what I'm trying to focus on my Incrementality Insider offering, that it's not only about math or numbers or logic, intelligence. It's about beliefs. It's about perception. And those who actually succeed fast in measuring ROI and allocating budget, eventually what's the ultimate goal? Winning in business. Like those are the ones who actually stop accepting, stop hedging, stop pretending, and actually spend some time to understand. And then, okay, now it makes sense. And meeting with a lot of clients who I understand there's so many issues, like so many problems in business that are day to day. Operationally, they cannot have a full brain space and awareness to dedicate to this.
Yeah, yes. I mean, the problem here is, I believe, is culture. Because sometimes incrementality measurements can affect someone's job. Because imagine this, I mean, we've received so many times the response from our clients that say, the model is wrong. And now, they have a good reason to say that, because maybe they have been promoted and they got budget over time because of the attributions. And now we're saying that those attributions were not actually incremental. We put each department in a really weird spot, which is not good. Now, I think I saw the high success and the highest ROI among more than 150 clients that we've had historically on clients that have a culture of truth at all cost. And this is really, really rare, because it means that everyone is trying to make the best, is not judge whether the insights changes based on new discoveries. So everyone is incentivized in order to find the new opportunity to make more incremental and marginal ROI. So the idea of promoting someone based on attributions will decay over time with the new incrementality measurements. And we will see that the incrementality measurements not being deterministic it will enhance this ability of companies to focus on truth, because the truth changes based on external environments variables. Yeah. For example, COVID comes again, we're going to see the ROI increase again because people stay online all the time. And this phenomenon will shape the world. And again, the first step is to measure scientifically and have truth at all costs culture internal in the company. This, I think, is the first step. And your focus is going to be helping big CMOs and CFOs in order to understand that, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think there's so much to be done, and I'm just getting started. I finished my definitive guide, what is incrementality. So far, it's still, even word itself, so like a loaded and like a misunderstood with different angles. And my goal is simplify, and I'm going to publish soon. I hope there will be the number one simplified article or essay about incrementality to understand to anyone. Because the problem with all of the definition which exist, it's assuming the prior knowledge of attribution. Mm-hmm. It's a term called contextual scaffolding. In order to understand something, you need to understand this, understand this, understand this. And that's why all the definition would exist. They have like a two level of assumption that you understand attribution, but usually business decision makers, they're very busy and they're strategic. They need to move fast and they don't have a time to build up this knowledge. That's why it's still being misunderstood. I think my theory is, I try to dig deeper and I'll follow up on my Incrementality Insider resource. I have a theory that back in the days when someone understood this and tried to implement and become industry standard, I think incrementality as a word came from econometricians. Yes. And I think the intention was to say there is a cause and effect, causality. But causality is like, it's a very high level philosophical concept. And it dig deeper into human nature and the physics, quantum, like, you don't want to overcomplicate. Okay, let's use something very like a simple, like a, what's increments of the sales, like, right? Like increments, there's different incrementality meaning, yep. Right? The increments is like, you can use on day to day is different meaning, but incrementality itself in the context of marketing, I think they just introduced two words in order to simplify, not to use causality, because causality is kind of like very complex topic, and incrementality came in and now it's become like a word which is being abused and misunderstood.
It's really important in the definition and the differences between multi-touch attribution and MMM and geolifts, for example, because MTA uses tracking. So it tries to understand where the user was before actually buying. So it tracks a path. It's like a journey, which doesn't mean he wouldn't have bought your product if he didn't do the journey. Well, incrementality focuses only on the additional sales you did because did a specific activity. And yes, it comes from econometrics and all the studies that come out, but it's essential to understand that MTA is tracking doesn't mean the numbers that they see inside of the dashboards are actually incremental. Most of the times, they're not talking about specific bottom of the funnel campaigns through last click attributions. They're over attributed.
Yeah, and totally agree. This is again, I'm hoping I'll have enough energy to write all those articles that I was thought about as well, that attribution have a different objective. Attribute doesn't mean prove causality.
Yeah.
And back in the day, when attribution was partially solving the causality objective, it was good enough, and then it replaced like cause and effect causality, right? So and that's why it's become like a norm treating attribution as a causal effect. Yes. And it's become like a new doctrine, sort of. And it's really hard now. I see that when you try to, that's why actually incrementality is really hard to adapt, because you coming to the people and saying, this is what you see on dashboard is not true. I mean, it is attribution attempt to try to get the snapshot of reality, but it's not like a coming to the business owners and say, all these years you believe in something and it's wrong, it's really hard. And for them to shift their mindset is really hard because it's a huge paradigm shift. And that's why I think there is a huge gap. I see the really positive trend, a lot of measurement SaaS and company like yours, like succeeding specifically, you also educating. But there is huge gap on the educational piece for decision makers to understand how things work and why is it very critical. And I think it's experts who in the field, they suffering the echo chamber, like it's expert curse. Like everybody talking within the same echo chamber about the same terms, and you think that world understand you, like when you talk about this fancy terms, and the businesses get confused, business owners, they don't understand. But for them, I think our goal and mission should be simplify. Like forget all those jargons. It's very simple. Cause and effect. You spend money, you should make money. If you don't know where you're spending money and how you're making money, you're losing money. So like it should be like that simple. And I think that's like I encourage everyone in the field to get out their own bubbles and then speak like a common, simple business language to explain this.
100%. We did an experiment actually in US. We cold called approximately 1,000 users, right? Scraping from LinkedIn, and we cold called them. Only 10% knew what MMM was. And we were talking about head of marketing, CMOs, and people, we're in US, which is the fastest adoption of incrementality measurements is in US, but majority of the market doesn't know even what it is, or what it is an incrementality test, which means that there is still a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
There is a lot of wasted budget. Therefore, there is a huge opportunity for both of us.
Yeah. I mean, totally. But it's also really hard because it requires courage for decision maker to be open-minded, admit that, okay, something we're doing is not right. There should be a new way. And very important what you touch on culture, because that's number one thing. I think that if company doesn't have a culture understanding objective truth, then they're not going to succeed. That's culture and evidence-based approach. Because without it, there'll always be someone pulling the blanket on their side. For example, some key decision maker, his power evaluated by number of headcounts he's like managing. And number of headcounts justified by the budgets they managing. Then for them, there is a really good concept explained in the movie Shogun. Have you seen that? They're saying like you have 3 hearts. I don't remember exact details, but there's like a hearts you're showing to others, there is other one, and there is your secret heart. You don't show anyone. What's your true intention? You don't tell to anyone, but this is what motivates you,
Yes.
and this is what drives you, and this is how you make decisions. And like, what's the secret heart on the decision makers? They may tell to their stakeholders, hey, we need to measure things right and like a true ROI, but internally, like he's trying to protect his like a Machiavelli games.
So this is an incentive problem also. I love your analogy, but the what incentives you use to do something or not is key. We've had 2 or 3 agencies working with Cassandra previously. We would do a model with amazing performance, stable, with all the back testing done, but the results were not really good. Now, we're not really good for them because it showed that the TV was not driving incremental sales as they were selling it. They told us that they would lose 30% of the total revenue for the account if they told the client to drop the investments in TV. Now, it's an entire business based on this bias.
Yeah.
Now, it makes sense that they will churn from Cassandra because it's not fitted for their business model. But this type of culture in the marketing, which is fully political, is what slows down adoption of incrementality measurement, and is slowing down because historically it's been driven by mostly politics because it couldn't be easily measured. Now, you are on the culture side. I'm more on how do I make it easier, and make it easier for companies. The first thing, and this is what I want to get your take on, is data, right? Big companies, you have a lot of experience with companies. My experience is more with mid-size. And how do big companies use data? And do they collect it? From your past experience since 2017?
Within the last year, I slightly changed my take on and also philosophy on data overall.
Okay.
So what I noticed that back in the day, data was equal to some sort of representation of the reality. There is only one objective truth. It's hard to measure, it's hard to quantify, it's hard to track, but there's only one objective truth, but you can get closer to it or you can go far from it.
Right.
So data is just, back in the day, there was no data, there was like analog way. Yes, data was revolutionarily innovative and like that was your competitive edge. And it's happening now as well. But in marketing specifically, we touched on this, what I called attribution industrial complex.
Right.
What's holding everything to start measuring accurately. And also the sub-problem which day-to-day marketeers suffering from, it's attribution addiction. They're addicted to it. It's like they don't want to overwhelm with the additional knowledge. It's simple enough. Like, this dashboard is telling me. And that's leading to the point of the data is just a record in someone's database. It doesn't mean it's very close to objective truth. Now I start using different word in order to describe how we're getting closer to objective truth. It's evidence. And evidence is different than data because data can say whatever. There's so many databases conflicting. And I think a lot of marketeers, they're spending unnecessary amount of time, absolutely, from my perspective, useless work, reconciliating this data, like with different sources of truth. Like there's only one truth. There's different database recording systems from different angles of impression. There's also, if you compare that platforms definition and how they define impression and clicks and everything, it's also different. The attribution, when they say even last click, if you dig down in the mechanics, it's also different definition and the mechanistic statistical logic, how they treat certain things. So like it's not apples to apples at all, but moving away that companies use data, yes, but the advantage or disadvantage for any big company trying to become like a bigger universe, absorbing all the users inside and get most of the data. But nobody has the absolute monopoly of the like a big browser type of total coverage. Nobody has it because there's a different system and nobody can force it because users, like if I don't like something, like for example on Meta or some other platform, I just log out and don't come back again. You cannot force me to get in and you don't have a visibility on my action and traction and everything. For businesses, advertisers, it's very simple. There's evidence. And evidence strength, it's your business objective. Your sales, your conversions, actual CRM sales, not tracked by whatever platform, but what in your money, like in your cash flow. This is evidence. Everything else, like you need to treat accordingly, knowing that it's all this data collection, they have the biases, the limitations. Like that's why I like to back to scientific methods. Every company need to approach evidence-based measurement and marketing. And evidence is very simple. There is a strength of it, and how you prove it through experiments, which is gold standard randomized control trials, and then repetitive proof several times. You have a meta study of several of them, and there is several levels of according to the pyramid, which is coming from medicine, right? Like evidence-based principles, and closing all this regarding the data. The data is just the records in someone's database, and it's not always a representation of the ground truth. And I think we need to change and evangelize all of us, like use the word evidence and then require the proof and strength of the evidence. Like how strong is this evidence? And the only arbiter of the evidence of success in business is your sales. Everything else is just the words.
100%. And what you mentioned is true. I mean, in the scientific terms, this is what should be done. And the way to assess anything is through causal inference and randomized test control trials. But on the other side, we have human psychology. And the terms that you used, they're addicted by attributions. Yes, they're addicted. Addicted is the right word. Because if you think about how a Facebook ad work or a Google ads, but Facebook it's simpler, it's easier to run. You start with $100. You start with your first campaign, it takes you, 30 minutes. Effort to get to the desired outcome is 30 minutes of their time, some effort learning how to install the pixel, etc. Then you spend $100 and you get one sale. And there the dopamine hits.
Yeah.
You see that it's easy to have a business outcome.
Yeah.
And this is what tricks everyone.
Yeah.
Because the other part is incrementality measurements. It is the truth, but the dopamine cycle that degenerates is too slow. Too much effort to achieve it compared to the attribution that it's so easy. Why should if I'm evaluated in attribution, why should I start seeking truth? I only care about my job, and that's it.
Yeah.
This is why there is a huge conflict on the industry about adopting this methodology at scale for everybody. Because the change needs to come upstairs.
Yeah.
The CEOs, the chiefs, the heads of marketing, heads of finance also need to establish this culture, not penalize people if the incrementality measurements are not how the attributions and what they've been using. And start adopting this methodology. But if it doesn't happen, we're going to have our times.
Yeah. And I think naturally lots of people just gravitate towards simplicity, like I do my 9 to 5 and just go home and don't think about it. And just it's good for the day and I report it. But I noticed also, I saw the really like a boost of the career of the professionals who start adopting this, because I think the bloat is so big and efficiency is so huge that anyone who understands a little bit and apply to their work, they will succeed in life, in work, in business, anywhere. Because once they start measuring things right, they prove ROI and they bring the evidence that it's working. And then even there will be internal friction initially, but then it will be reflected in the sales and conversions. I think nobody can argue with business outcomes. And once you master it a little bit, and go beyond your day-to-day responsibility, but try to learn it and apply it and help your company succeed, make money, you will succeed as well. I can share a lot of stories that I was in the work for Google, Amazon, TikTok, and I did some consulting. Currently, I also technical advisor for the X Corp, former Twitter. And I saw that anyone who touched this topic and then become a little bit better than average, they succeed in career. I personally saw that several people got promoted to the next level because they tackled this in the big tech side.
Oh yes, the hardest part is to do the first step, but it's really easy to generate incredible results because the benchmark is making decisions randomly. So you need to beat randomness, right? Or decision based on deprecated data.
But before that, it's hard to admit for that it is random, because there is some sort of theater happening, there's some sort of like a proxy metrics and vanity metrics, and we're doing this, we're doing that. And what I mentioned, that 80% of time wasted on the reconciliation and doing some absolutely unnecessary work of this messy middle, I think every company will succeed and do much, much better if they focus on the true scientific causal measurement and then free up 80% of the time and effort and resources to just do their product and services better and try to understand the customers better. If you spend all this time on that, you will do much, much better. And then you remove all this hamster wheel, unnecessary, like a day-to-day hustle, which is like, it's hard to admit because people as addicted to attribution, it's become part of their nature and identity. They've been doing it for the years. They don't know other way. But there is a way to any business owners or decision makers, I think that one of the promise can be and benefit that you can free up so much time and energy of your teams if you just move away from the deterministic attribution to the causal holistic measurement and spend the time and move the resources to the better product services and understanding your users better.
Oh, yes, 100%. Do you want to share a little bit on what are the practical steps that you would suggest to a company that you learn in your experience in Google, TikTok, X, etc., on how to adopt this incrementality part?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot, specifically last year when I left big tech, start my solopreneur journey. And because of this problem I'm trying to tackle, and I see this vacuum of underserved knowledge or insights, I tried to compress this and I came up with the whole framework, which I called, because it's not only intellectual, it's kind of spiritual, metaphysical, measurement elevation atlas. So there is 4 levels, and adding this like a almost metaphysical and consciousness approach, the lowest level I called sleepwalkers. And this is their characteristics. I'm going to share in the visual and everything details in my resource, but I'll say it's slightly changing over the last 5 years, but 80% of the market I see as I can describe them as sleepwalkers because they only chase this attribution. They don't think other way. And as a result, there's a lot of money being wasted. The next level, I call them awakening. Awakening, they start questioning the attribution system, attribution matrix. And there should be other way because, as you mentioned, like a reconciliation issue, when you combine all those dashboards, it's not matching your actual CRM. It's never matching. And it should be like concern what's accurate. And the next level, I call it enlightened. This is actually who figured out those who already aggressively adopting measurement tools. They don't believe attribution. They don't believe platforms, first of all. They have their own judgment and they're driven by evidence. And I think intuitively, a lot of company already moving to that direction. I think a lot of your clients there. And I haven't seen someone zooming out and kind of putting the structure and the levels and then kind of like a high level. And I try to do so. So a next level, I call it omniscience. It's that absolute A players who figured this out, but they then discovered on organizational level and there is a personal level. On organizational level, they figured out that advertising is such a big lucrative business and they tackle this and then now they become advertisers themselves. They build their ad platforms because it's a very lucrative business. But on the personal side, there are some experts who know this really well. And whenever they touch, they reduce the waste dramatically and help company understand and find the inflection point of the nonlinear growth. Because it's not only about waste, but it's about growth potential across different channels.
Oh, yeah. It's always like that.
And also it's a combination of the factors because it's not only channel and isolation. It's like I make an analogy to as a gravity. It's relative to the mix. And MMM confirms that, right? There is a different combination with different proportions spent, giving you best ROI possible. So that's why those are who understood this and have an intuition. So long story short, I'll share this atlas later and describe the details and characteristic of it. But I see the positive trends as company and organizations and individuals moving towards, and that will be my mission to help this.
100%. But in a super practical sense, do you suggest to start from GeoLift or market mix modeling?
Depending on the appetite for getting how fast you want to move. So I noticed that natural progression, starting with MMM, then realizing, okay, MMM needs to be calibrated. then MMM calibrated through different causal studies, either geo-experimentation or causal impact or many, many things, because I can provide simple analogy that there is one objective reality and there is a lot of uncertainty in measurement. And starting with MMM, you are like shrinking the boundaries of like a noise and getting closer to the truth with uncertainty. But what helps you get even faster, it's MMM in combination of geo-experiments. You got like, you drastically reduce uncertainty and get closer to like noise, signal noise ratio. You're reducing the noise drastically and getting signals ratio. But practically, I've seen the cases where you can only do experiments. I've seen that cases too, but that require internal courage to move really fast because it required to say like, stop everything. We're doing things completely differently.
Oh yes, 100%. And it's kind of funny because we have the same approach in the software. You upload the data, it calculates with causal inference, with causal impact, this causal inference data in signals to calibrate the model. And then the model trains and then the outputs tell you, hey, you need to do additional geo experiments on these 3 channels because they're uncertain. I agree with your statement that reducing the uncertainty on measurements means reducing the risk in the investment decision that you make. If you reduce the investment risk, you make more money later. So it's been an incredible conversation. And thank you for inviting me at Ferragosto, which is the 15th of August in Italy. No one works. 15th of August. I love being here and I love being in this room with you talking about incrementality. And I would thank all the people that are watching us and listening to our conversation. And thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it was a pleasure. I think we will do part 2, definitely.
All right. Comment below if you want part 2.
Thank you so much for paying attention and watching. And I think we're just getting started and it's a very exciting time. And my personal belief, anyone can succeed in this area if they have an open mind and courage to shift the paradigm.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.